The three groups I have chosen to discuss are the feminist movement, the LGBTQ movement, and the grassroots African American civil rights movement. When you first think about these groups of individuals, you wouldn't think that they have much in common, but if you look at their goals, they were all fairly similar. They all just wanted to be able to express who they are as individuals and be free. The goal of the feminist movement was to let women have the same opportunities as men did in the workforce as well as in life as a whole. These women wanted to dismantle the workplace inequality. In the 1960s to 70s American feminist movement breaking down barriers for women, they stated that 38% of women who worked in the 1960s were largely limited to jobs as teachers, nurses, or secretaries. Women were generally unwelcome in professional programs, as one medical school dean declared. Hell yes, we have a quota. We do keep women out when we can. We don't want them here, and they don't want them elsewhere either, whether or not they'll admit it. And as a result, in 1960, women accounted for 6% of American doctors, 3% of lawyers, and less than 1% of engineers. It is absolutely ridiculous that these numbers are so low and that a medical school dean actually said that they try to keep women out. This just shows that men back in this time were scared of what women could do and tried to hide and tear them down as much as they could. The tactics of these women were simply to stand up for what they believe in and fight until they achieved what they wanted to achieve. Shirley Chisholm said, "It is true that part of the problem has been that women have not been aggressive in demanding their rights. This was also true of the black population for many years. They submitted to oppression and even cooperated with it. Women have done the same thing, but now there is an awareness of the situation, particularly among the younger segment of the population." Essentially, she was saying, the older generation did not feel as though they had an opportunity to do anything about this, but also I feel as though majority of this older generation just wanted to be a housewife, take care of the kids, and cook their husband's dinner each night. This younger generation was growing up in the rebellion movement. They wanted to be able to achieve what the men were doing. Times were changing, and men weren't so ready for it. They had quite a few successes and failures. The main success was the fact that women now have a higher chance to be in positions that men are in. We as women are able to be what we want because of this movement, and same goes for men as well. There's definitely less of a stigma around which jobs men can have and the ones women can have. All jobs are essentially up for grabs because these women back in the day decided to take a stand and fight for what they believe in. Now, on the other hand, certain groups during this movement weren't focused on the big picture. The feminists concerned with sexuality in particular were just focused on sexuality. Now, this is important, but they weren't looking at other more important aspects of this movement. They gave the women that were out there trying to make a name for themselves a bad rap. The goals of the LGBTQ movement were fairly simple. They wanted to be able to love whoever they wanted without being discriminated against. A lot of people that back then and even now aren't able to comprehend loving someone of the same gender, and since they don't understand that, they try to tear it down. They wanted gay acts to become decriminalized according to John D'Amelio in After Stonewall. The tactics they used were similar to those in the feminist movement. They fought until they got the outcome they needed. These people were tired of being oppressed and wanted a great change. Radical lesbians were talking about lesbian feminists, but I found this tiny section very relevant to the LGBTQ movement. They said, homosexuality is a byproduct of a particular way of setting up roles on the basis of sex. As such, it is an inauthentic category. In a society in which men do not oppress women and sexual expression is allowed to follow feelings, the categories of homosexuality and heterosexuality would disappear, simply saying that these are just labels put on people by others who are afraid of what they don't understand and what they can't control. This movement had a lot of minor successes but some major failures for a long time. New rhetoric of pride and affirmation, political, social, and cultural organizations that helped build a movement and a community, public affirmation of homosexuality identity, coming out in public were a few of the successes. There were lots of small victories that they had at this time, but the failures outweighed the successes. They had the don't ask, don't tell situation going on with the Army, and they weren't able to get married, both of which just recently changed. But also they were still being discriminated against in the workforce. But if you look at it, that is something they all have in common. The grassroots African American civil rights movement was a very large and complicated movement that accomplished a lot. The main goal of theirs was to stop the discrimination and achieve what the white men were doing. Simply put, they were done with being shoved to the back burner. They didn't want segregation anymore. These people accomplished so much in so many different areas of their lives. They had so many tactics used by so many different people. They had sit-ins, walks, powerful speeches, protests, and court cases to try and achieve freedom. Of course, one of the main influencers in the movement was Martin Luther King Jr. He inspired so many people with his speeches, like his letter from Birmingham jail. In this letter, he talks about how he was discriminated against when he wasn't even being violent, but still was forced to go to jail. Peace wasn't always the best option for them, but they used it as much as they could. His letter was so inspiring and it helped cause a lot of change in this. This movement had a lot of successes. They got rid of segregation in schools and businesses and bathrooms, got equal opportunities in the workforce. They gained the amendment for the right to vote. But the biggest failure, I would say, is that it took so long and so many people got hurt to get the change they needed. There was quite a bit of violence along with this movement that hurt a lot of people physically as well as mentally. The biggest success out of these three groups would have to be the grassroots African American civil rights movement, simply because they went through so much and got the most out of their movement. They had the most to lose. All of these movements were important and still are, but the civil rights movement was a turning point for America, and a lot of people had to change their minds about these people. They had the most discrimination for the longest period of time and were just a large group of people fighting for what is right. What I have gathered from all of these three different groups is that majority of white men are afraid of change and do not want to admit defeat or show that they in fact are wrong. These diverse people have so much to offer this world, and back then and still to this day, people are petrified of what they cannot control. Of course, these situations are not cookie cutter or the same, but what they all wanted was the same: freedom. Freedom to do whatever they please and freedom to truly be who they are and do what they wish. There is still quite a way to go, but if each of these movements did not happen, we would not be in the world we are today. Thank you for your time.